Hello, everybody. Sorry. Can you see me and can you hear me? Somebody give me a thumbs up. I think so. Heather should be joining here in a little bit. Here she comes. Hi, Miss Carrie.
Hello, it works.
Hi.
Love
How
technology when it works. How are you?
Good.
Good.
Okay, so this is the Thirsty Thursday at 3 p.m. So I have to start off by asking, what are we drinking today?
Oh, it's kind of ironic you asked me. This is a coffee that I just said is better than Starbucks because it's full throttle brand coffee from Deadwood, South Dakota, and a lot of heavy creamer with chocolate.
Ooh,
What are you
okay.
drinking?
I'm drinking a good old Diet Pepsi from Taco Bell because I ran around today and I was like, I think I need some extra caffeine. So good old Taco Bell.
I get it. So cool. I love the fact that you're doing this, that you're having us on to chat. I listened to the one last Thursday. It was fabulous. And I have totally borrowed the story about the bugs, the fleas. Like I'm using that. I'm using that content.
Yeah, I mean, and that's kind of what I was thinking. I sat there and I thought, I could totally start a podcast. We could totally like talk and chit chat and all that other type of stuff. But this kind of is like the best of both worlds because it puts names and faces together and we can see each other and we can chit chat about things. And I love the diversity that we have in our group. And it was like, how do I get back involved? How do I continue to connect people? How do I celebrate people? It's kind of a happy little accident. I'm kind of enjoying it. And I think it's super fun. But yes, the boundaries one, oh my God. I'm sure I probably could have talked for probably another like 5 hours. Yeah. I mean, it was just the nuggets that she gave. Yeah. So, but I am really excited about this one too, because I probably need all the knowledge that you have, like everything in your brain. I need it all. Yeah. So why don't you start off by telling people who you are, and a little bit about you or whatever else, and then we'll dive right into succession planning.
Yep. So I started as a financial advisor 10 years ago. What happened was I was working in corporate America. We lived in Kansas, and it was time for my husband to come home and take over the family farm. And so there's a lot of things that made it time, but it was time. And so we sold our house and packed up and moved back to South Dakota. And so he could farm. And then that was my opportunity to do something other than work in corporate America and climb that crazy corporate ladder. And so I got hooked up with somebody on LinkedIn that said, why don't you be a financial advisor? And I thought, okay, that makes sense. I really feel like God had been laying the path for me to do that. I was one of those weird children that looked at mutual funds when I was in the 7th grade. Like, I was always kind of into it. So I started being a financial advisor, and through all sorts of twists and turns, I ended up really wanting to help farm families. We had such a good experience. It wasn't perfect, but it was really good. And other people were not experiencing that. And it's like, man, there's gotta be some solutions here. And so I just started learning as much as I possibly could. And I started doing workshops. So those were my first 2 things. And like my first workshops were not that good. God bless the people that went to them. And they just got better and better and better. And I learned more, and I worked with a couple of farm mediators that get involved when things are really ugly. And I had an attorney take me under her wing, and I sat through hours and hours and hours of meetings with her, just learning, and got better and better at it. And so it got to the point where I really feel like I have a good system that really helps people through the process when they're struggling. And so I did end up, I'd worked captive for 9 years. So I was with the same company under their umbrella. If you know of any of the big box investment companies, you see them in every town, they're probably captive. So I started my own RIA. So I started my own investment firm about a year ago now. So that's exciting. and it's just opened the doors. And I knew there was going to be some things that were going to be better, as far as me being able to educate people and share better. Like I wouldn't have been able to do this if I was captive. It wouldn't have been allowed, you know. And so I'm able to share more and educate more. And I knew all that was going to happen. I didn't realize how much better it would be for the clients in regards to products and what's available to them. It's been just absolutely unreal. So yeah, that's how I ended up where I am today. So
That's really cool. Okay, so because you lived in Kansas, you're gonna have to tell me where you lived because I'm curious.
Winfield, and I called
We're
Winfield.
just right down the road.
Really, where are you at?
We're in Andale, so we're like southwest Sedgwick County.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean Winfield was, yeah, it's right down the road.
yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah.
No, we were Winfield. I love Winfield. Shout out to anybody around there. So
Right. Yes, that's so very cool. Well, so I guess like how, like what's the way or what's the correct is, well, first of all, is there a correct process
yeah,
to do it? And
yeah,
then the second piece of that is, let's say, so like my husband works with my
yeah,
in-laws. And so um what if they're not doing it? I mean, they're kind of
yeah.
doing it, but what if they're not doing it? Like what could I do then in order
Yep.
to get things moving forward or do something different,
Yep.
if that makes sense?
Yep. So first we'll kind of just talk about the process, right?
Okay.
So making a note so I don't lose my thoughts. And then second, we're going to go back, like, what do we do if mom and dad aren't doing anything or whoever, right?
Right.
So, um, so the process, I'll talk about that. You know, there definitely is a process. And the
Yeah.
first we need to do is have a team
Okay.
and realize we need a team of professionals that are going to help us. And I think of it as a three-legged stool. And you need a good CPA that understands your taxes, and you probably hopefully already have one. If not, get one. Great. You need a good attorney. Oh man, I can't stress it enough, that understands farms, because there is some out there that just don't. And it's gotten very, very, very specialized. It's not like everything else. And I joke a little bit and say in these small towns, we have these attorneys that, you know, try to get someone out of jail in the morning and do a divorce in the afternoon. They think they're going to write your farm trust work up at night. They can't do it. Like they can't do it. But more and more, they're realizing they can't do it either. Like, you know, more and more, they're like, no, you got to go to a specialist. And so there's people that specialize, get a good attorney that specializes in it. And then the third piece is a financial advisor. And so people sometimes think like we compete with each other. Like somebody came in the other day and they're like, oh, I'm going to work with my CPA on that. And I'm like, okay, well, I'll see you probably in a week then about this, right? He's like, what? Like, huh? Like, and his wife was super frustrated. I mean, I thought she's going to lose her marbles. And I was just kind of joking with him. And I said, I just told you, like, your CPA told you to come here. Like your CPA can't do all of it, right? And so all do our own pieces. And so we're a team and we get along, right? And so people think, oh, like I already went to one or the other. You got to have us all. So a good example of that is, as a financial advisor, I help people work through the process. And as I listen to the amazing ladies in this group that are so vulnerable and share, right? And share with each other so we can all learn from each other. They struggle. They're like, oh man, like, you know, the CPA said this, or this happened, or we're not getting anything done, or dad's not doing anything. And it's that struggle. That's my sweet spot. Like I'm really, really good with working through that communication. I have something I call a blueprint that gets all the family stuff out and all the financial stuff out, and we work through it. And so I have solutions that an attorney's not going to. So, and your financial advisor will have solutions an attorney's not going to. So, for example, if you go to a good attorney, they're going to say, how are you going to pay for long-term care? Well, you're not, how do you know? Like if you haven't worked with somebody, you don't know how you're going to pay for long-term care, right? Or how
Right.
mom and dad long-term care, we don't know. Financial advisors charged with taking care of that. You know, it's just are all fair and equal. Like I've got a lot of really, really good ways, and I could probably name 10 ways to work out that fair and equal. And what I mean by that is maybe we've got one family member farming, they got a ton of sweat equity in there, they're not building the 401k, they're working their tails off. But we also have children that live in town that we love equally, right? And we don't want to leave them out, but we also know we can't split that farm, say 3 ways or even 2 ways for that matter, and have it continue. It just doesn't work that way. And so I can work through that process so that when you go into an attorney, you're like, oh, this is what I need, right? And so this is what we're going to do. Then the attorney can get through that. Now, sometimes people have experiences, they go to the attorney and the attorney's like, come back when you know what you want to do. Well, you don't know if you don't work with someone, right? Yeah. So
I got to
call
call
me.
there.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, but if you get a good, when you have a good attorney and you go in and know what you want to do, you know, they're the people that write wills and trusts. Like, I don't write wills and trusts. That's not my job. And so I'm not qualified to do that. And they don't do what I do. And so we all work together. So if anybody's struggling, I'd take a deep breath and say, who do I have on my team? Like, don't feel like you got to solve it yourself or you've got to have the answers. And I particularly find that, I think with older men, I'll just say, like, they don't have the answers, and so then they don't take any action, right? And so
Yeah.
you don't have to have the answers. You just have to have a really good team. And so now when it comes to people not moving forward, that's a big deal, and that's a lot of it. And I think something like, what, 25% of farms really have a farm succession plan in place, and I'd say that's probably generous. You know,
Right.
it's just really, really low, and it's for lack of action. And I think of a story, and it doesn't have anything to do with farming, but I think it's a good point. It's a story about a gentleman who he lived an amazing life, and so he had always worked really hard. He was that kid that was the best kid in school, and he had good parents. He ended up going off to the military, and he was in Washington, D.C., and he was having a retirement party. And so he invited his mom and dad to come to his retirement party. Mom and dad were like in their 80s by this point. In the back of his mind, he kept wondering if dad was really going to come or not, if he was really going to come to his retirement party. And he kept wondering, is he going to make it? Is he going to come? And here the thing is, mom and dad were good parents, but dad never, ever went to any of the school stuff. Like, he just never showed up. He'd be there for sports, school, not going to be there. And so the son said, you know, he was this massive overachiever, just, you know, type A, lived this amazing life, sat down with dad. He said, I'm going to have this discussion, right? And that's what it takes. We can learn a lot from this. So I'm going to have this discussion. So he sat down with dad and he said, Dad, you know, you're a great dad, right? But, like, why didn't you come to my school stuff, right? Like, I just worked so hard, and man, you were never there. And he was, you know, tears everywhere. And I about get teared up when I think about it. But he said, you know, I didn't know how to read. And I was afraid that teacher was going to ask me to read something at your conferences, and I didn't know how to read, and I didn't want to embarrass you. And I couldn't go. Like, that was it. It was me and not you. And that's just, that story shows so much, because, like, we can learn, yeah, we need to ask why, and we probably don't know. But it also shows, like, we're asking people to get way out of their comfort zone. Like, we're telling them, get way out of your comfort zone. And they have ran their farm the way they have ran their farm forever. And they know every blade of grass. They know how to make every piece of equipment work. They know all these ins and outs of all of it. And nobody's going to tell them anything, because they know it. Nobody knows it like they know it. And now we're like, we want you to come sit with somebody, and they're scared I'm going to ask a question they don't know the answer to, right? And so if we just know what's going on, sometimes that helps. The next thing is, like, if people are having trouble, I say, you got to do what you can do where you're at. So I say, get an appointment and start the conversation, and let them know you're going. The other thing is, we have to separate business and family. And that's tough. It's really, really hard. And I interviewed 100 farm wives, and a lot of them are in this group when I wrote my book. And one of them gave me the best advice. She said every year her and her husband go kind of on a little retreat, the two of them, and they sit down and they talk about work, and they talk about whether her job is the right thing for the family, and they talk about whether him being on the farm is the right thing for the family, and they have an honest discussion about it. Yeah. But wouldn't that be different if mom and dad knew, look, we have a discussion, like, it's a family discussion. And, you know, I'm gonna get a little Bible-y in here, because I believe in the Bible. People don't have to believe in it, but I do. It's my marching orders. And it says you cling to your family when you get married, and which means the husband should cling to his wife when they get married. And so they were, you know, that's what they were doing. Like, you have to plan for your family, and you have to take care of your family. It's a lot easier to make that negotiation when you're first coming home. And so, like, with my son, I'm like, you do a wage study and you show your dad what farm hands are making this summer, right? Like, and when you come home, you're gonna, like, it's gonna be different. Like, and then he's like, of course I want to come home now. Well, you build a capacity plan. Show us how you're going to bring capacity to the farm. Like, but that's hindsight, right? Like, I know that, and we had some leverage when we came home because we didn't have to come home, right? Like, and so we had some leverage and we negotiated. And when we get stuck in it, we haven't negotiated. And all of a sudden, like, we're in a business agreement with no agreement. And that's hard. It's really, really hard. So what an advisor can do is step back and look at it. Like, I mean, I obviously love farming and I love the farming life, but I also really, really understand business, and I'm not attached to either one of those sides when I work with people. And so how do we negotiate this? And I had a workshop, and a lot of people were on there from here, and we just talked so much like about how to approach people. And I put a script together. Like, I put it because I'm like, I've been coaching people on what to do for years. Like, let me write it up. And so there's a script I put together that if, because somebody had brought up the good point, like, should my husband go have the conversation, or he wants me to, but I think he should. Well, it's his parents. He needs to go have that conversation, right? And so, yeah. And so it's like, how do we give him a script so that he can go ahead and have that conversation? Because sometimes that's super uncomfortable for them. Like, it's not, it's just uncomfortable. My husband has a terrible time communicating, and I communicate all day long, every day, right? So it's just how we're made. And so, yeah, I'd say, so to kind of shorten that long answer up, I mean, do what you can do, but start working with a financial advisor. They're going to be able to guide you through the business side versus the family side. Get my free resource of the script. We'll put it up here somewhere, and just start taking action. You have to. And like, it's not going to get any easier. It's only going to get harder. So
I completely and totally agree with that. I know that we kind of started, some of the succession planning or the talks or whatever. And it took several different meetings to kind of, try to even start talking about it and get the emotions out of the way, right? Like, we weren't talking about it because it was like, okay, well, you're heading down the road tomorrow. We're talking because I don't want to be like 60 and dead up to my eyeballs that I'm just not capable or prepared for to flip around and hand to my kids. And so that was kind of, why we started talking and things like that. And then we definitely had like the conversation around, okay, here's why we're wanting to do it, and what things can we take and we can go ahead and do to kind of set ourselves up and just keep moving the process forward. But you're so right about the team. If you do not have a team, if you do not have people that, individuals that do not want to talk to each other, find the 3 people that want to talk to each other.
Yeah, exactly.
Find the 3 people that, like, because stop and think about it. You're paying money to them,
right,
in order to help you. They basically kind of sort of become your employees a little bit. And I've kind of come up with this idea of, I got to have the people that are on my team. If they're not my team, if they're not talking to me, if they're not being honest, if they're in it for themselves, like, I got to back off and redo things. We had a financial planner that I was like, I'm just not feeling it. And he worked at a CPA firm. We had to switch it. I mean, it sucks at the time, but you gotta do what you gotta do.
And a lot of people say they specialize in farm succession planning, and they just don't. They really don't. They don't get it, understand it. Like, why are we saying we do? Like, and I have a lot of people call me and they're like, other advisors, I want to do what you do. I want to specialize, and none of them last. Like, is it just, you have to be part of it. Like, nobody can understand it if you haven't done it. Like, you got to be in it somehow to really get the like, to me, it's about the values farming builds. It's about the loyalty to the legend of the farm. Like, it's that stuff. It's not the money. It's not the money.
Well, and I'm not going to go be a heart doctor without going to school. Like, you have to go learn that stuff. You have to be willing. You have some sort. It's got to touch in some way. Not that anybody can't learn it, but it's going to be a lot harder road for those people that just have not been ingrained in it.
You gotta have part of it, in you. And it's like I said, it's just about the values, and it's, I always say too, like, it's not like, I don't know, maybe people relate to this, maybe won't, but like, I don't feel like anybody ever really owns the land, right? Like, it's our job to pass it on to the next generation. Like, that's just how it, and so you can't even, people talk about it, it's like, you don't even make sense. Like, it doesn't even make sense. They don't realize, no, I'm not selling part of the land to buy a house in Mexico. Are you kidding me? Like, no, it's just crazy talk, right? Like, it's what you use to pass on to the next generation and keep it going. And that's what's important.
Well,
So,
and they can't do it. Your farm does not last if you don't have ground.
right.
You know, a
Yeah.
cattle ranch doesn't last without cattle pasture. Like, it's not, and it's that's definitely hard. So what other nuggets do you have? These are good. I like these.
Yeah, I appreciate it. I think there's so many ways to do things that people don't realize, and we get ourselves into trouble because we don't ask and don't find out. And so I think there's some things out there that people have done in the past that just aren't good. And when I hear about them, I think they're red flags. And so I'm just going to share a few red flags. And I can't ever make a recommendation to anybody because I don't know your situation, right? But like in the listeners' situations, I don't know. So don't take anything as a recommendation, but I just want to share red flags and then you can think about it, like as far as how everybody can think about how it, works into their situation. But
Right.
so, things that I don't like, I really hate the idea of ever getting a loan on land that's already paid off. And so if we have a farm succession plan set up so that somebody has to go get a loan when mom and dad die to pay off the land or pay out the other kids, like let's do something different there. Like I've got other solutions. Getting a loan on land that's already paid off is a problem. And I think of even like in the, the 80s were awful, right? There was some stuff in 2008. Like once you put that loan on there, first of all, you're paying the bank a ton of money. And second, you're giving up control. Don't ever do it. Like there's a better way than that. People ask about wills and trusts. I'll talk about that a little bit because that's something people ask about a lot, I think. And again, you don't have to know the difference between wills and trusts. You don't have to know what you need. Like you just got to get the right people in front of you. But I can tell you almost all of my farms end up with a trust. And so a will's going to go through probate. Probate's going to run you between 5 to 8% of your gross total asset. So when your parents die and you inherit the farm, 5 to 8% is going to go out in probate. And then some states have really, really weird rules on top of it. So if people ask me, like they say, I went to an attorney and they said I should just do a will. And I'm like, follow the money. Follow the money. How much money are they going to make? You know? And so that's a red flag to me. Like if you are set on a trust and an attorney says you should have a will, go get a second opinion. Like really do. Trusts or wills are fine for simple situations. Like you just got a couple kids you're passing a house on. That's not what farming is. Farming's got a lot of moving pieces. So a trust is going to wrap around the asset and give instructions. And there's lots of different types of trusts. The biggest difference is probably revocable and irrevocable. Revocable can be changed, irrevocable cannot. And so people think, oh, the neighbors had one and it didn't work. It was a nightmare. I don't want to trust. Well, you don't know what happened with the neighbors, do you? Like, and we don't know what happened over there. We don't know what kind of trust they had. And so we can't judge what we need based on that. People come in sometimes and they say, I'm going to use business entity to pass my land on, and I'm going to do it in shares to my kids. Okay. One of the absolute most litigated situations in the United States right now. And the problem is you're forcing business partnerships. So I'm going to talk about a lawsuit that happened in Nebraska. It was 2014, and there was 4 children, 2 boys that farmed together. Of course, they're adults, but I call them, they're their kids. So they got 80% of this beautiful farm, 80%. And then the girls had 20%. And is in a corporation, so they own that amount of shares. Well, those boys could outvote those girls on anything. And they did. I mean, if they wanted to make a decision, they did it, and they outvoted the girls. One year, they decided to pay themselves in commodities in the amount of $400,000. So the boys took $400,000 out to pay themselves and left the girls out. Girls said, this is ridiculous. We're going to legal up. So they legal up and they go sue the boys. The girls lose in court. Now, doesn't matter who won or lost. At the end of the day, we don't want our kids suing each other. So you're forcing a business partnership. Yeah, so that's you got to really think about it because it's hard to find a good business partner in normal situations. And then when you're picking one for your kids and they're probably married, so then there's a whole nother layer of that. Like it usually is not a good idea. And I never say never. There was a farm I knew, $40 million dairy farm, used the corporation. They ran like a corporation. They passed it on like a corporation. They had job descriptions. They had corporate meetings. They had ways you could get into the farm and out of the farm. Like they ran like corporation, made sense for them. It's not the normal farm. Just isn't. So anyway, so that's I would think about too. That's another red flag that I would think about.
Yeah,
So.
no,
Mm-hmm.
those are definitely good. And it's funny that you say they ran like a corporation, whatever else. I mean, because when you go to like young farmers and ranchers, I mean, we've talked about that, having regular business and having positions and all that other type of stuff. And I used to, you'd bring that stuff home and you're like, oh, this stuff is a really good idea and we should do this and blah, blah, blah. And then we go back to doing the
Right.
same we've always done. And it was, yeah, that was kind of a good idea, but whatever.
Yeah.
But no, I like the opportunity to listen to what you said, because we share crop, with landlords and stuff
Yep.
like that. But I would have never, like, the partnership together, I would have never thought about that. Yeah,
Yeah.
because if you're all not equal and if you're all not on the same
Yeah.
page, like, oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh, it's bad. And then you got to buy each other out, or yeah, it's terribly litigated. Stepmom with kid, like stepmom, and then the children. I've had calls on terrible situations. Yeah.
You're just like, ew, no, thank you. No, thank
Yeah. Um, the other thing we talk about is, pick your easy. Like, when do you want it to be easy? So people will come in and be like, I just want it to be easy. Okay, well, do you want it to be easy for you, or do you want it to be easy for your kids?
you.
Because if we kick everything forward and we don't make any decisions, that's easy for us. It's really, really hard for our children.
Yes.
So the more decisions we can make and just bite the bullet and make the decisions, the better off we're going to be. And the sooner we are, because it's way better when I got both mom and dad. If one of them's passed away and I've only got one left, it's a lot harder. Or I tend to, like, people know someone's getting sick and all of a sudden they're like, we got to do our planning, and they come in and see me and it's like, holy cats, like, we got to get this done before it's too late. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, yeah.
So, yeah.
Crazy. Yeah, no, all that stuff is really good information. You and I were chatting a little bit earlier. You were talking about the word just went out of my head. A class or something that you're doing, or
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So, I had done a lot of farm classes. I don't have any Future Proof Your Farms on the books right now. I have a couple conferences I'm speaking at. Definitely available to do a farm workshop if somebody wanted that. What I've got on the schedule right now is next Tuesday, I've got something that I'm doing called Wealth Reimagined, and it's about rewriting the rules of generational wealth. And so we can definitely dive into some farm stuff on there. It'll be people, all sorts of different business owners and people interested in building their wealth. There's 4 pillars to it. So, and I'll share those in case it sounds interesting to people. The first one's just like mindset. Like, what do we got to rethink? I think it's interesting. We tend to act how we were raised when it comes to money, right? And it's like, well, was that a good role model or not? Like, and times change and then we have to adjust. And I think we get hammered by social media, and there's a few people out there that tell us what to do with our money, and it doesn't always align, particularly if we are wealth creators. And so we have spenders and savers, but a lot of us entrepreneurial people were wealth creators, and farmers are wealth creators, whether they plan to get in that business or not. They are, because you're in business, right?
yes.
And so we use debt differently. We pass wealth on differently when you're a wealth creator. And so we're going to talk about, like, what that means to our mindset, like how we have to think about debt differently, good debt, bad debt, when to be in a relationship with a bank and when we don't want to be in a relationship with a bank. So that's another section. Boot the bank out of your business. I have had the honor of helping farmers eliminate their operating loans. And I tell you, it is so much fun and it is so good.
Right.
It's a good thing, because it's okay to have debt on land maybe and things like that if you have to, if you're expanding, right? But boy, when you have an operating loan that's connected to the bank and they can say yes or no to you, I've been through it on the other side. When you get a no with clients, it's really, really hard. And so if we can eliminate that operating loan, I've got a secret sauce that can make it happen over time. Like, let's do that, right?
Okay.
So that's another pillar of it. Tax strategies. And I do a lot of tax strategies with businesses. But farming, I don't think has always thought about some of the stuff I do. So I can take some stuff that like corporate's been doing, like executive bonus plans. I mean, they've been doing that in the corporate world for a really long time. Simples and SEPs. I mean, just all sorts of different options. There's ways to build. Man, if I could have a magic wand, what I would like every farm to do is the generation that's farming now, like us 40-year-olds, 30-year-olds, like let's start building retirement accounts so that when we retire, our kids don't have to pay for our retirement like the rest of the world. Wouldn't that be fantastic? So we don't sit house or a retirement, know that little bit of money that the farm put away every year is going to be my retirement, right? And so like that's like that secret sauce. Like what can we do there? Like that kind of tax, that's a tax strategy. It sounds like it's a retirement strategy, it's a tax strategy. So some tax strategy stuff in there. And then I'm going to do a little of the Rockefeller stuff at the end, like it's a kind of a bonus content. So how we can really, really, really get serious about building generational wealth, because I've work with a lot of people in their 30s and they're so proactive, and it's like they're like, what can we do? And I'm like, oh, let me tell you what you can do, because you're young, you got young kids, like we can do a lot. So those are kind of the categories. So taxes, booting the bank out of your business, mindset. And then I'm also diving into 401ks, because people, I know farmers, if you've worked on the farm all the time, you probably don't have a big 401k, but you know, a lot of times one of us didn't work on the farm. And so what do we do about that 401k? We got to take control of them. The whole pension world, 401k world is changing. I heard some more stats today about 401ks that made me even more alarmed. And so we ad to take control of that. So that's the fourth pillar. And so we're going to cover that on Tuesday. If any of that sounds interesting to people, I'd love to have you join me. I'll put a link on this when I see it posted, and you just click on there. It's free, it's virtual. If you can't make it but you want the information, just sign up and I'll send you the recording afterwards. Of course, available for 5 days. So yeah.
So one last question. Is it smart to, what's the correct way I want to say this? I'm trying to think. So like, could you be my financial planner, or does it need to be like somebody that is in the same state as me because of all of the, rules and regs and that type of stuff? Or tell me about that.
Great question. Because of my licensing and how I am, most states I can have four, so 2 couples, clients in any state at any given time without doing licensing. So I can work in almost every state. Texas, if you want me in Texas, I got to get licensed. No big deal. Mm-hmm. So yeah, which we probably are adding Texas, but yes, I can absolutely help in almost every state. So
great, because that was one of the questions. I mean, I don't, because some businesses are like, well, we only do this, or states are different and whatever else. So I thought I would just ask that question.
Yes. Oh, and I'm glad you did, because I think there was confusion on my last workshop about that. Yeah, I can work in every state. And sometimes people come talk to me and we work on some stuff and they want to keep their local financial advisor. That's perfectly fine. Like you may have a really good financial advisor that's great with your investments, but doesn't understand farming. Like I can fill in the gaps there. It doesn't have to be an all or nothing.
Okay.
Yep, for sure.
Perfect.
So
perfect. I don't think I really have any questions. I think you like literally nailed like everything that I was thinking of and to talk about or whatever. So is there anything else that we need to know, or is there ways for people to get a hold of you, or like how would you like to end this?
Yeah, for sure. I appreciate it. My strong message would be like, just do it now, right? Like go pro, do it now. Because we live in an industry that is like one thing after another, right? It's planting, harvest, calving, Christmas, taxes, I don't know. You know what I mean? Like I'll do it after harvest. I'll do it after, I'll do it after Christmas. Like,
children.
And it's not all encompassing. So you're living your life still. And I always tell the guys this because I think that because their brains, they think one thing at a time. Right? Yeah. So they're, no, I'm gonna do this and this and this. Like you do this while you do the other things. Like we're gonna fit it in between, right? It's okay. So it's not all encompassing. So do it now. The sooner the better. Man, I've done some stuff with 30 and 40-year-olds. It's fantastic. So it's not too early to start. If you haven't done it, it's not too late because you're still here, right? Still breathing. So just give me a call. Like my first meeting's always free. Like I don't charge like for that first appointment. We just talk, see what I can do to help you get on the right track. Maybe you just have a couple questions, or maybe we need to do something more and I can help you out. So I'll put at 6 I'll just put it I'll put it all in the chat. People don't want to write down phone numbers and stuff. I'll put all my information in that. DMing me, I'm in this group. DM me is a great way. I'm a big Facebook person, so I'm a messenger. I'll put a link for the training in the chat. But yeah, just reach out. That would be my advice. Like, yeah.
Well, I really appreciate you, and I think it's really cool that you joined this group and that you're here and willing to help people. And like I said, I started the group 13 years ago, 14 years ago, because that literally was, it was like I needed help, and I know that I have, you know, I've got as much information as I possibly can get, but it's always nice to have more. So really, you know, showcasing you guys, helping you help us, like that's exactly what I wanted to do. So I appreciate you so much, and thank you
It's been
so
fun.
much. Yeah, it's real fun. So we will chat again soon.
Yeah, sounds good.
All right. Bye.